The 3 Cents podcast is recorded on Australian soil, and we'd like to acknowledge the Turrbal people, the traditional custodians of the land in which we live on today, and pay our respects to their elders past and present.
Jumbo.
Baoni.
G'day, and welcome to another episode of 3 Cents.
My name is Sophie.
I'm Tyre.
And I'm Dara.
And we will be sharing 3 unique perspectives, insights, opinions, and keeping it spicy, right, girls?
That's right.
I think we can all agree that COVID-19 has really taken us for a wild ride. I mean, I remember feeling so isolated from everyone and everything, and, you know, having to transition to a whole new lifestyle. And also, like, dealing with fears of the unknown and the uncertainty of the future. So I'm pretty interested to know how you guys coped during the whole drama of COVID-19. How did you sort of, take care of your mental health? How did you stay sane? Yeah, what did you guys do?
For me, I actually don't know how I survived. I just did it. But what I really noticed from the whole COVID-19 situation was this high level of positivity. And that just really irks me a lot because, I was like stressed. I was overwhelmed because it's such a scary prospect, and especially when you don't know what's coming. And because I love planning and I love knowing like exactly what things are going to look like, I didn't really know what COVID-19 was, what was going to happen with it. And then all of a sudden, I'm just seeing everybody under the sun baking some banana bread. So I'm like, okay, there's a pandemic and we're baking banana bread. I was one of them. Okay, and I failed at baking the banana bread, guys, because I forgot to put flour in my baking. So it wasn't an actual banana bread.
What was it, Dara?
It was a banana omelette.
Yeah, pretty much a banana omelette. But yeah, it just sort of made me think about toxic positivity and not really acknowledging the suffering or the pain or the fact that you're uncomfortable, and just sort of ignoring it and then covering it up with pretty stickers and being like, yay, but let's bake, let's look outside, let's learn a new skill during this pandemic. So what do you think, Tayo, about toxic positivity as a whole?
I would totally agree with what you were saying, because in that, I guess, that 2019-2020 period, a lot of people, especially on social media, were putting a lot of emphasis on, since we have so much downtime, you need to use this time wisely. Like, why not start the business? Nothing's stopping you. But let's be honest, in that time, we were feeling really anxious. Like, I know for myself personally, really anxious about, my career prospects. Like, job uncertainty was, high at some stages, financial impacts and things like that. Like, it's actually a really stressful thing to be thinking about. Like, what, a week ago you were thinking, I'm going to be in this job forever, I'm going to get a promotion, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, the next week people are getting their incomes cut in half. Like, it's a really crazy time. And I guess having those positive vibes being rubbed in your face when you're feeling clearly, on the verge of a breakdown is really hard to deal with. I think it's so real. Toxic positivity is really real. And it's all in your face, really. You can't escape it. Like, you pick up your phone and you're seeing all the positive quotes on Instagram, like, good vibes only, like, make today a great day. And whilst it's good to be positive, I'm not trying to say at all that people shouldn't be optimistic, but, there are a lot of instances where, people are not doing okay, and not allowing them to really sit with those emotions is, can be quite detrimental.
Yeah, but I think sometimes I do wonder if there is a place for those positive things that we see on social media, because thinking back to that 2019, 2020 period, whenever I'd be going through something difficult, I would run to Instagram, and those quotes would be like motivating for me, or self-help books, or YouTube, where people are going through what I'm going through as well. So I'm interested to just kind of define where it becomes toxic. Yeah. It's that, I guess, suppression of what you're going through because you should be here. And, you know, when you open Instagram, everybody's on a holiday or everybody's just having the perfect time under lockdown, you know. But it's like, I don't feel like that. So is something wrong with me? Should I just suppress this and just act like everything is all G? Like, where do we draw the line as to this is positive and it's helping me or helping those around me? And, okay, now this is actually just toxic positivity. This is not actually helping anyone at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely, as we said, the extreme of things, like just being extreme with that positivity. Yeah. You know, where you can't talk about your struggles at all and it just has to be positive. I think that's when we sort of go into the toxic part of it. So we're not saying positivity is something that we should just like get rid of, but definitely something that we need to think about. And, you know, if your friend comes to you or your family member comes to you and they're struggling and, you know, or you can, you know, all you're doing is saying, oh, just be positive, you know, then it's just kind of very harmful to the person as well. And I think I struggle when I go to someone and I'm upset about something and they aren't acknowledging, you know, that I'm feeling rubbish. Like I just want to be acknowledged. And then we can move on to, okay, how do we solve it? Or, you know, what's the next step in terms of being positive? But I guess another thing to look at is, as African or African Australians, how we see toxic positivity in a lot of things. Like even if you speak to anyone, let's say if you call Nigeria, someone from home in Nigeria, and you're like, oh, this is something bad's happening, it's very like, okay, pray about it. Yes. You know. Yeah. Or I think, you know, Tayo mentioned the other day that even the way you greet people in our language, Yoruba, like all of it is very positive. Very. Like, you know, you go into a space and an elderly person is sitting there and you're basically saying, wow, well done for sitting. Yeah. You know, like, it's just like, you know, well done for everything. Yeah. So it's very, I think it's ingrained in a lot of our cultural aspects as well. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, a good example that I can think about is even things like going to a funeral. Like, I remember going to a funeral in Nigeria and, you know, clearly everybody's really emotional. It's like a tough thing to go through and be with at that time. And people are basically telling you, like, you know, don't cry. Like, and it was, I found it so weird, I guess, coming from, you know, living in Australia where funerals and things like that, generally people kind of just be around you, like they don't generally say too much. But in Nigeria, like, you have like your auntie saying like, take heart, and it's like, but I'm really actually upset about this. Like, it's really bothering me. Like, you're not allowing me to actually just be with my emotions. You're just asking me to switch up and act like, you know, oh, it's fine. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, when it really is. I definitely do see that a lot within, you know, some of my family members and some of the events that have occurred. Like, I'm not trying to say that we shouldn't be optimistic, but I do find that there's a lot of the time we do struggle to be with our emotions and actually acknowledge when we're really going through a crappy time. Like, everybody tries to be so optimistic, especially, you know, I guess I can speak for in Nigeria. There's, you know, everybody's going through a tough time, but they try to be as optimistic as possible in order to help move them through the time that they're in. But there's not, I really do feel like we do lack quite a bit of acknowledgement of
Yeah.
our feelings, and that has quite a large impact on our mental health.
100%.
Yeah.
And I wonder, like, that makes me think, like, do we say things like take heart and just ask people to just kind of get over it? Is it because we don't know how to actually have that conversation? And I feel like it's also across cultures that we are in within Australia as well. Because if I think about it, like going into work, how are you? How's it going?
Yeah,
good, thanks. even though you might be having a really shitty day, like you're just not, well, I can speak for everyone, but you are reluctant. Like it's like your automatic response.
Yeah,
good, thanks. Even though you are not good, thanks. You're not good, thanks. You know, and it's almost like it's across cultures. And I wonder if it's because we just don't know how to have that conversation, or that conversation is just so heavy and difficult to just touch on across all the cultures.
It is a weird thing to ask how you are and not be able to answer.
Yeah, it is.
What is up with that, guys?
That is really weird to think that you can't genuinely, or you don't feel comfortable to genuinely say how you're feeling. And I really do think, I guess from the perspective of the African culture, it is really important for us to feel open to express how we are feeling, because mental health is something that isn't, I'd say that we're probably not as in tune with it as we should. I feel like we probably don't regard it as high as, you know, physical injuries or things like that we might experience. Like we kind of see mental health as like a taboo, like it's not something that we really talk about. So I feel like it is really important for us to, you know, feel open to discuss if we're going through a bad time, like feel open to get help, and not always just result into this, oh, God will provide. Yes, God will provide, but, you know, in this particular point, at this particular point in time, you know, you're not feeling okay and you're not fine. And that can be okay. It's important to address that.
Yeah, and I mean, these are human emotions that we do go through. Like, yeah, we're scared to speak about it to each other, yet we go through the same things. See how odd that is?
Yeah.
And maybe it's a lack of trust or whatever it is, but yeah, I think, definitely with African culture, we're very used to just brushing everything under the rug and keeping it pushing. But really, at the end of the day, what we're doing is just isolating ourselves, suppressing issues until they become really big and very destructive.
Yeah. Do you think that sort of pushes us away from, let's say, our African family members? Like,
so
you know,
true,
if you
actually.
speak to them, do you feel like, okay, I can be open, I can actually say what my issue is? Do you feel like you need to put up a facade instead?
That's actually such a good point. And now that you've actually said it, I've just kind of done like a quick recap on my encounters, and that is very true. I don't actually feel like the majority of the time I feel comfortable to really say like, oh, you know, I'm really not doing okay. And I actually think a part of it is that comparison of, oh, you know, you're abroad, you know, you shouldn't really have many issues, you bringing to them that, you know, oh, you know, I'm actually really struggling here, or things are expensive here, like I'm struggling financially. I guess it's that I guess their response to that is probably what might withdraw me from really expressing how I am feeling, because it is that comparison of, oh, well, you know, you're overseas, like what problems could you have, like, you know,
your problems are not problems.
Exactly. That's a good point. Your problems are not problems. And I actually, it something resonated with me in a TED talk that I saw, where the guy was basically explaining that he was told by his parents to kind of suppress his feelings because of that comparison. I believe that his family was from Iran, and they were basically saying, you shouldn't feel like, you don't want to be on this earth because your family is struggling. Like you're in I guess what they would term first world problems. Like you're in a privileged country right at this point in time, but you've got your cousins that are struggling day to day. You shouldn't feel the need to, I guess, have any mental
you should constantly
struggles.
be happy. What are you doing?
Exactly.
You have clean water. You have
exactly.
you go to a nice school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that actually is toxic positivity.
It absolutely is.
Definitely. Well, I think on that note, we really need to bring an expert in to help us sort of talk about this topic from a professional side. So excited to introduce our special guest today, Mallory, who's a psychologist and one of my favorite people in the entire world. She is super talented. Not only is she a psychologist, but she is the best chef, I feel. Whenever I go to her house, I just feel very inadequate. Like, she's just always cooking things from scratch, like fresh bread, fresh pasta, that kind of person. So she's like the best friend to have when you're trying to gain weight, though. So Mallory, thank you so much for joining us today. I guess our listeners would love to know a little bit about yourself. Like, what did you specialize in? And, how long have you been a psychologist?
Thank you for that introduction, Dara. That is wonderful. I'm so happy to be here. It's an absolute honour. I'm so excited for you. I'm always so proud of everything that you do. So it is an absolute honour to be a part of your wonderful journey. So yes, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a psychologist. I've been practicing for a couple of years now. So I graduated 2 years ago from my Masters of Clinical Psychology, and before that I did a Bachelor with honours, Bachelor of Psychology with honours.
Ooh,
so,
fancy.
Yes, indeed. So technically I'm still a clinical psychology registrar. So I'm almost finished that program, so then I'll be able to take the big boy title of clinical psychologist.
Nice. I love the way we're all like, yes.
Yeah.
Titles.
We love titles, us Africans.
Yes.
But yeah, so I've been practicing for a couple of years now in private practice, so in just a small group practice, and I see people from across the age span, children, adolescents, adults, older adults, and I really work with day-to-day people just like you and me with issues like depression, anxiety, relationship problems, problems with confidence, but I see a lot of problems with shame and embarrassment and really getting in contact with, being able to be true to your authentic self. So I think that my experience really ties in well to the topic of our podcast today, for sure.
Right. So in regards to, it's COVID-19 at the moment, how has that impacted your work at the moment? Like, how are you feeling about that? Is it, are you seeing a different set of problems, or is it pretty much the same, but just a multiple of people?
Yeah, it's almost like, all the same problem. Well, yeah, I guess there is all the same problems, but people are more severe. So we have more clients needing therapy these days. So that puts us psychologists and, counsellors and life coaches and all the other allied health sort of professionals in a tough position, because we're having to turn away people that need psychological services. And that's something that, is new for our industry. To turn people away is really, really, really tough. So we're seeing a lot more people need more services in this time. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I do know a lot of people that have been wanting to seek help, and they're going to psychologists and they're being told we've got a 2-month waiting period, or the gap between appointments is weeks and weeks. And I guess at this point in time where a lot of people are feeling quite alone, there's not, in some instances, there's not very much for people to look forward to, especially if you're in lockdown and you're at home 24/7. Having access to that help is quite important, but I can see that it would put quite a lot of strain on the industry to I guess help people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like so much of it comes down to all of our so many of our coping mechanisms have been taken away. You know, the way that we soothe ourselves and make space for all of our pain and suffering in life is our leisure, is our social circles, it's our, you know, daily self-care habits, that some of which have been taken totally away, and so our coping capacity has been reduced, and so we need to find new ways to access support, and one really important way is therapy. And unfortunately, we're sort of at capacity. We really truly are, which is really hard on everyone. You know?
Yeah. Can you imagine breaking your leg and then being told, "Oh, operate on it 3 months down the line"? Like,
that's such a good point.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
you'll lose your leg.
Yeah.
Exactly. And psychological issues should be treated, you know, similarly to physical issues. Absolutely. And therapy is like brushing your teeth, but for your brain. But so many people just don't have access to that, and it's hard.
Right. So this episode is obviously about toxic positivity, and I know you mentioned that, you know, a lot of people are trying to figure out how to cope during COVID-19 and all of that, and even the aftermath, because I think some countries are a little bit more settled, and a lot of things that I've noticed is that there's just positive quotes everywhere. It's just, I just open up my phone on Instagram and it's the first thing I see. You know, if I'm upset and I call some specific friends, they'll be like, just be positive, don't be so negative. And that's just really frustrating. And so we came about the term toxic positivity, and we just kind of wanted to know a little bit more about that. What exactly is toxic positivity?
So obviously, like, toxic positivity is a bit of a pop culture sort of phrase these days. So it's not something that you'll find necessarily in research, but probably the closest, I guess, psychological concept to it would be like positive impression management. And that's something, a universal human trait, a human habit that we all do, that's effective and adaptable in many ways. But it's almost, in my view anyway, toxic positivity is like an extreme version of this positive impression management. It's gotten too far from us, and it's become quite pervasive in our culture, and it's causing some problems in this day and age, for sure.
Yeah, right. So how do we spot it? Like, you know, I mean, obviously everyone, you know, like you said, every human has this sort of trait in terms of, okay, I want to be positive about this situation, or you know, when a friend comes to you, the first thing you say is, "Oh, just stay positive, girl, you can do it," you know. So, but how do we spot it when it's, you know, a bit much, when we're going overboard?
I feel like, you know, because there's two sides of the coin here, because the act of positivity, you know, is a great thing. That is an important therapeutic skill to learn in life, to see the silver lining, or, you know, to be a glass half full kind of person. You know, that is effective in many ways, but not blindly, not 100% of the time, all the time. You know, we can't use one tool for everything, and that's why this extreme version of it can be troublesome. And, you know, so you asked how you spot it. You know, I think we all feel it when we know it, you know. You just catch yourself and you're like, "Oh, you being for real there though?" Like, like, you were calling me crying yesterday, like in absolute, like a puddle on the floor. And now I see a post of you being like, "Oh my God, how wonderful is the day?" And it's like, that's great for you, but like, I don't know, that doesn't sit right for me, you know. I think we all feel that sense of, oh, there's something missing here, you know.
Just like suppression. Absolutely. But,
you know, a more generalized version, if somebody is 100% positive all the time, if everything that they say is happy-go-lucky, no worries, oh, at least blah, 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 you know, it's not realistic. No person and no person's life is perfect. And if we blindly pretend that it is, we aren't being true to ourselves or other people. And I think we all pick up on that, because we all, at a, you know, deep level, love authenticity. When somebody in front of us is being real and true to themselves, because that helps us accept everything within us as well. If somebody else is accepting everything, including the bad, within them. So I think we feel it, you know, that's how you spot it.
And I feel like it makes you feel a bit of an outcast or isolated if people keep telling you, "Oh, you'll be all right." You kind of question your own emotions and feelings, and Yeah.
Absolutely. It's invalidating. It's invalidating.
Exactly.
You know, when you come to a friend or, you know, any support person and say, I'm feeling this really heavy feeling, you know, all you're asking that other person is to sit with me, sit with this feeling. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to fix it. Just see me and see this feeling and help me with it, you know, and just being with that person helps you with it. But when you have somebody that's over-identifying with this positive impression management or toxic positivity, they just quickly and blindly say, oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it, you know, but look how pretty the sky is today, you know?
Not the sky.
Oh, my Lord, right?
Yeah.
And really, like, you know, that person is probably coming from a good place, but they're not being mindful and true and really, they're not really being there with you, you know, because if they were, might be able to say, hey, yeah, I see it, I know, I feel it too, but it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, and you're still getting to the same place that positive impression management is trying to do, but you're doing it in an authentic way because you're acknowledging the pain. You're acknowledging that, yeah, life is a bit shit sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's shit for me too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's a really good point, especially when we do spend so much time on social media and we're seeing a lot of people, you know, even celebrities basically saying like, oh, you know, life's good, we need to be grateful, this, that, and we're kind of using that as a basis to kind of invalidate to a point how we're feeling at a particular point in time. I guess it has that ability to kind of suppress or question like, oh, like, should I be upset about this because you know, this person's saying that I should enjoy life or I should get out and smell the fresh air, but like, you know, what if I actually don't feel like doing that right now? Like and people sometimes are looking at a lot of things on social media as like a way of guidance or help, but then I feel anyway like they're not really truly helping themselves if they use that as their basis of, you know, recovery or something like that.
Because they're not taking in the truth of everything.
Yeah.
You can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater, you know, the whole yin and yang thing. We are good and bad simultaneously, and so is life.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome point. I guess another thing that we were wondering was self-help books. So I have like a pet hate with those things. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I just pick one up and it just upsets me. Like, and only because a lot of these books are written in a way where it's like this high level of positivity, or it's like go and get it kind of attitude, but there's it doesn't really seem like there's an acknowledgement as to like the suffering or the struggles you're going through. It's more like, okay, you're struggling, get over it, smile at a friend, you'll feel better, like all this kind of stuff. So what do you think? Do you think there's a place for things like self-help books? Do you think there is a place for these quotes that we're seeing all over the place?
Definitely, absolutely. But also, while we're taking into consideration pain and suffering and paying attention to that as well, you know, giving space for that, I think it's definitely a part of healthy well-being and a fulfilling and rich and meaningful life, you know, gratitudes and positivity and looking towards the things that really make life meaningful and fulfilling, but not at the blind ignorance of everything else, which sometimes is painful and difficult and ugly and, you know, all of that stuff.
Yeah. But where do you draw the line though, in terms of, okay, we're trying to be positive in this situation. Okay, now we're crossing the boundary where this is now toxic. Like, it's at a toxic level.
Yeah, I think if you always start with the painful emotion and then move into the positive emotion, then you're safe. You know, you should always tune into your emotional mind and validate that pain and suffering before we go, okay, I've made some space for you. I've said, hello, jealousy or envy or anxiety. It's okay that you're here. I'm not going to vilify you because you've helped me in many other areas of life, but I don't need you anymore. I'm going to leave you at home today. And when I close the door, that's you staying home. You're grounded today because I'm now going to go out and enjoy my friends. I might still have you niggling at me in the background, but I know that I can be mostly mindful today, and I'm going to fill my cup back up so that tomorrow when I open the door back up to you, maybe you're a little bit less teed off. Maybe you're a little bit less heavy or intense because I've taken good care of myself, and I needed to lean into that positivity. You know, I needed to lean into the gratitudes and say, how good is summer in Australia? How good are my friends? Even though this massive thing went wrong for me this week, I wallowed in it last night and I soothed myself and I did all my self-care routines. But then I was like, no, I've given you that space, and it's time for you to stay here and for me to move on, you know? So it's like, address that negativity first and then move into the positivity, rather than just ignoring it, repressing it, saying, I hate you, I want you to go away and I wish you weren't here. Because that makes that demon, that anxiety or fear, whatever it is, makes it even louder. As soon as you struggle against it, it's bigger, stronger than you, right? So you need to give it that space. You need to turn towards it.
So that acknowledgement, and it also sounds like you're trying to get people to dissociate with, or not relate to that part of themselves, just put that distance between it.
And from my perspective, I would say diffuse from, create space between you and that thought or emotion or memory, you know? So understanding that that thought isn't you, you know? It's part of you, it's part of your journey, but it isn't you, and you have the ultimate power over it. You are wiser, you are bigger, you are stronger. Sometimes it'll get stronger, but that's okay too, you know?
Yeah, because I feel like when we go through those things, we'll probably say things like, I am scared. It's like, no, I'm scared in this moment. I feel scared in this moment.
Beautiful. Or I'm noticing the thought that I'm terrified right now, or I'm noticing this sensation on inside my chest, you know? It's within you. You're looking at the thought rather than from it, you know? It's about changing your perspective to that pain rather than the pain in itself. So we're not struggling against it. We're saying, it's okay that you're here, but I've got this. You know, you're giving yourself trust and faith, 100%. And that allows you to not need this toxic positivity, you know? It's all fine, no worries. Like
and we just finished Are You Okay Day last month, and that's really good advice that you've given, you know, in terms of your own personal approach to it, as an individual, not you personally, but how we can approach it, you know, from within. But I do wonder what your advice would be for other people supporting people going through something, because I feel like that's where toxic positivity really, you know, shines.
Absolutely, you're so right. And we're not even conscious to it either, you know, like we just get bred to be fixers, you know, like if a problem gets put in front of us, you go, what, okay, we got a problem, how are we going to solve this, right? But the problem with like pain or fear or anxiety or depression or any one of those like tough emotions, like we don't need to fix it necessarily. Those emotions are okay. They're part of being human. They're part of living a life that's rich and meaningful, you know? We shouldn't say, oh, that sucks that you're feeling sad, you know? Like, let me try to tell you all the things that are wonderful in life so you can get rid of that, you know? So you're telling me that this feeling of sadness is bad, that I shouldn't want it, that I should struggle against it, and that something is wrong with me for feeling sad right now. It's like, well, no, we've been evolved to have these emotions. They help us. They communicate such important information to us about what makes us feel good and satisfied and fulfilled. And notice that I'm not saying happy, because that's not what life is about. It's not the blind pursuit of happiness, right? It's we should be ensuring things that are meaningful to us, that give us a sense of worthiness, you know? That's how we fight this thing that's really driving toxic positivity, you know?
I love that.
But I lost the question that you started with. I went off on a tangent.
So, you know, as a friend, you know, your friend's going through something. What would you tell our listeners who are just thinking, what do I say though? Like, what do I say to my friend to help them?
See, you don't need to say anything. All you need to do is just be there with them, right? That urge for us to say, oh, it's okay. Oh, but look at the pretty butterfly over there. You know, this is driven really from an internal fear of sitting with that feeling too. We're all just aversive to this pain. And so when somebody else comes to us and says, oh my God, blah, 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 whatever it is, we're like, get rid of it, blah, 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 you know? And for us, that means, it's okay, blah, 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 blah. But no, I would encourage, if you want to be a good support person to the people in your life, learn to sit with your own pain so that then you can sit with other people's pain. And what that looks like with another person is, you know, so you come to me and you say, oh my God, I just had the worst day ever. This happened, blah, 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 blah. I might say, whoa, shit, that's hard. You know, I totally understand that would be really overwhelming for you. Like, I'd feel the same way in your position.
You're acknowledging it.
I haven't told you to do anything. I haven't told you to get rid of that pain.
Yeah.
All I've done is basically supportive psychotherapy, right? And any person can do this. This is not complex stuff, right? We're just hitting on empathy, and everyone is capable of this, but we're hitting on validation. So like, I see what you're feeling, you know? I'm noticing that you're really sad right now. I can see that in you, you know? So I'm connecting with your emotion. I'm tuning into like the common suffering of it. You know, you're not alone. I would feel that way, or I'm sure that so many other people would feel that way as well. And it can also be helpful, you know, as an actual tool or strategy to do something, to make some meaning out of it. And that doesn't have to be positive meaning. It doesn't have to be like, oh, but at least, you know, it's not this, rah, rah. And by the way, it is invalidating if you start a sentence with at least.
Yeah.
100%. We are not being empathetic. If you go, well, at least this, no, you've lost them already, right? So validation, tuning into the common suffering of it all and making some meaning out of it. And it doesn't have to be positive. You know, for me, it's always about, this isn't what I tell myself anyway. This is an opportunity for me to get better at dealing with stress. This is an opportunity for me to learn more skills so that I can teach my clients more skills. You know, something that tunes back into my value system and what's important to me, so that I can make space for that difficult feeling, you know, or that difficult thing that happened. And that it hasn't been a waste. I've learned something from it. I can grow from it, you know. So that would be my advice for people out there that want to be better support people to the people around them. And that's amazing, you know, given the situation that we're in these days, you know, from a clinical psychologist perspective anyway.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because when it comes to seeking help and things like that, some people, like I guess I'll speak from my personal experience. The times when I felt like, you know, I would like to get some professional help, I was a little bit conscious of going to a psychologist with that perception of, oh, what if they're just going to tell me, like, you know, all these positive things and not really sit through the emotions that I'm feeling, and then we can kind of tackle or find mechanisms to be able to cope. So I guess to encourage others as well, like, not to be afraid of seeking help. Like, do you think that this toxic positivity might have an effect on people seeking help, like from psychologists, with that impression that I just kind of went through with you? Yeah,
definitely. And yeah, I would definitely encourage everybody to understand that psychologists will all take this perspective, as in, like, it is important to get in touch with difficult emotions. So you're absolutely right there. But there's also the difficulty from our side of things in that this is a universal and natural human bias to manage the impression that we make on other people, because it's important that we're accepted socially, you know, on many levels. And so that comes into the therapy room as well. And I think this is important for listeners to know, because this is how they're going to get better. They're going to get more out of therapy if they drop this positive impression management. And I can see this in my clients, especially new clients. They'll come in and I can tell that they want me to like them. Yeah. They don't want me to judge them negatively. They want me to, you know, think they're cool or whatever. And I think that's exasperated. Anyway, you know what I mean? Yeah. Because I'm young and female, and I think it ties into, anyway. So that means that they're not being open and authentic and truly themselves in therapy, you know? They'll tell me something, but they'll exaggerate it slightly. And I'm not a mind reader. I'm not a lie detector. I might be able to pick up on it after a little while, and I'll be like, oh, you said this, but you did this. What's happening there? And I'll help you tell me, right? Yeah. But it can be natural, but also conscious at some level, and that's really difficult for many clients. And I wanted to just put that out there as a piece of advice. You know, when you do go to therapy, drop it. Absolutely drop it, because that is the number one space in life where you do not need to fear me judging you. As a therapist, we all have a therapeutic stance of unconditional positive regard. And that means that no matter what you do, no matter what you say, I am always going to see you in a positive light. I am never going to judge you negatively. That is a really unique relationship in life, and it's hard to get your head around, but it's important for clients to know that you must feel comfortable in sharing the deepest, darkest of demons. And if you don't feel comfortable with your therapist, then that's something that tells you that you need to find somebody that's more suitable to you.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother topic that I could talk about
Yeah.
hours and hours and hours. But let me just put the caveat in there.
Yeah.
Find the therapist for you, because not all therapists are going to be for you. There's lots of different people in the world. There's lots of different therapists in the world.
Yeah.
And you're going to get way better therapy if you click well with your therapist. So shop around, although that's another, difficult thing in times of COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Mallory, for joining us. I feel so much smarter, guys.
Yeah.
Like, wow. And a lot more empathetic. And I feel like I'm going to be a better friend. Yeah. I think I'm a pretty good friend, though, to be honest.
Yeah.
You guys better agree. Are you guys agreeing? Yeah. Okay. Just checking. Just double checking. But yeah, no, thank you so much for giving your time. And we really want to honor you for your work, because I know, you have to deal with so much. I mean, you have to deal with your own emotions, and you have to deal with your clients' emotions as well. And obviously, you're like, pretty much saving lives. So we really, really appreciate you.
Yeah.
No, really, you are. I think you really are. And, I feel like your clients are really lucky to have you. So,
oh man, I'm lucky to have my clients.
Oh.
Like, I'm lucky to be in this industry. I cannot, and I do want to put this out there as well, because we need more psychologists. That's really what's going to help us solve this problem. We don't need more funding. Well, we need more funding into universities, but anyway, we need more psychologists out there. So let me just say how amazing this job is. Like, every single day I get to go in and I hold space for people, whatever they need to come in and talk to me about. Like, I am there for them. And sometimes that's real hard, really, really, really hard on my heart. But there's so many times when I'm filled with joy and love and pride for my clients. It's such a rich role, and I'm so honored to call myself a psychologist, and I'm so thankful that you guys brought me in here today. It's absolutely wonderful to share my thoughts and to have you guys as such wonderful soundboards to help to keep me on track.
I love that. Thank you so much, Mallory. And how can we reach you, or how can our listeners reach you?
Well, I mean, so I am you'll see all my details on my page.
I'll link that
working, absolutely. Yeah, I'm working at a small private practice at the Redlands called Zest Infusion, because we infuse people with the zest of life.
Oh, I love that.
And obviously I'm on LinkedIn, so I'm searchable that way as well. I'll put it out there. My books are closed, so nobody come.
Please don't call my office.
My receptionists are like, no more clients, please.
Yeah, I love that. But no, we'll definitely link some information for you guys to follow. Maybe not follow her, but you can follow her on LinkedIn and all that.
Yeah.
We'll sort that out.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you again, and yes, thanks for such an insightful session with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Wow, that was a really good conversation. I'm really happy that we got her on the episode. Such great resources for you guys to really utilize, and she really did emphasize how important it is to get help, which I think is very important, especially for our African audience as well. But all people in general, definitely encourage everyone to get help. Be okay with not being okay, essentially, is really important. I think that's one of the main things that she really pointed out.
Yes, Taya. So I think it's very important for all of us to note that if any of our listeners are experiencing any emotional distress, just to contact Lifeline on 131114. And we will be linking some amazing services and apps that are really helpful to maintaining your mental health. And I think it's also important to note that you can contact your GP as well. And some of the mental health case planning is actually Medicare rebated. So I think. Get out there, do your research, and really get that help if you need it. And if you know anyone that is struggling, support them and provide those resources to them as well.
And that's our 3 cents. Thank you for tuning in, and be sure to give us your thoughts on today's topic on our Instagram page, 3cents.podcast.
Signing out, it's Dara,
Sophie, and Tayo.